parent of twins, boy-girl twins. They're currently 11 years old in fifth grade. We live in Oregon, and I work as an epidemiologist. So I have a research background, PhD in epidemiology, and I've spent quite a lot of time researching different programs and interventions for my son, which is the one who has dyslexia. And his type of dyslexia is based on a visual processing disorder, which is rare and resistant to intervention. I noticed my son having problems with reading very early on. I think I'd say in kindergarten. And I mentioned it to the school and they said it's too early. So then we were in first grade and I mentioned it again and they said it was too early. And then at the end of first grade, they said, okay, yes, now we have a problem. And then I said, okay, well, what do we do about it? And at that point, because we were in a private school, it was on me to figure out what to do and how to help him. So, of course, he was screened for dyslexia, and the gold standard intervention is a phonics-based approach, something like Orton-Gillingham, to which we did for years and did not get any benefit or effect. So one of his first tutors, who he was seeing, I'd say 3 times a week for about a year, at the end of the year, she finally came to us and said, you know, Sorel, he's not presenting like a normal dyslexic, and I don't think this is working. To which I was super frustrated because it had been a year and he's working very hard. I'm working very hard. He's so diligent with his, work ethic to really go through this process to have little to no gains. So then we switched. We tried to look at other interventions. I talked to the school, to which again, they did not give really any support or help or advice other than saying phonics is the best way. So because I'm a researcher and I have a PhD in epidemiology, I had to identify why do kids fail phonics, to which I realized it was about 30% of kids. So from there, I came across a visual processing disorder, which matched his sort of etiology and issues that he was experiencing. And then I had him screened, and we identified that, yes, he does have a visual processing disorder. He was not able to track properly. We started to do vision therapy. And then at that point, I had a very hard time identifying any interventions for his rare subtype of dyslexia. The literature thus far is really phonics-based, and anybody who doesn't fit into that, there really wasn't very many options. So Sorel had a very hard time academically in school because his IQ is so incredibly high, but he couldn't read independently. And so he really struggled being as smart as he is, but not able to work and keep up because of his reading delay. So he had, a number of behavioral problems. We ended up switching schools. There were just a number of problems at home. Really had a hard time with the tutoring. It made him feel very bad. He was very resistant to doing the work because he was not seeing a lot of gains. I can't even count the number of different programs that we tried before we found edge blocks. So with Sorel's type of dyslexia, he often mistook B for D and D for B. He often would read the word starting at the end of the word and then go to the beginning. So instead of tracking left to right, he would track right to left. He would see a word and guess at it based on some of the letters that he recognized. He really didn't decode any words. He was just guessing his way through. He really struggled with independent reading. He wouldn't even attempt to do it for the most part unless you were sitting with him. He had a very hard time just finding his place on the lines. He needs a very large font with few words, per frame for him to look at. He was reading, I'd say, first grade level, maybe early second grade, and he kind of got stuck there for quite some time. I'd say at the end of fourth grade is when we found EduBlocks, and we started during the summer between fourth and fifth grade. And at that time, he was early second grade reader. Sorel's dyslexia had a tremendous impact on him as well as our whole family. He had very bad self-esteem. He felt like he was stupid. When you're in early elementary school, you base how smart you are based on how you can read. I mean, that's essentially what everybody is doing to distinguish themselves. And he saw a lot of his peers reading fluently, reading grade level books, and he really felt bad about himself that he couldn't do that, even though he is so incredibly smart. He didn't have the really ability or opportunity, I'd say, in elementary school to show what his strengths are. And so reading had a very big impact on him. When we would, even things like going to the grocery store, he could not look through the bread aisle to find the bread that I asked him to pick. He got really overwhelmed. Street signs, he wouldn't read them. It had a big impact at home because it required so much time. So from his twin, who doesn't have dyslexia, Sorel and I spent so much one-on-one time doing different interventions, reading, vision therapy, like all of the things that go along with it. It was quite taxing on us and on us as a family, and then just a big source of frustration to try to get him to overcome, to do it, to put the time in. It just was a source of conflict for many years between us. So I'm trying to remember when I exactly discovered EduBlocks. We started EduBlocks at the end of fourth grade, in the summer between fourth and fifth grade. I think I came across EduBlocks perhaps a year earlier or 6 months earlier, but I was still trying different interventions. You get to this point where you interview people and they say, this program will work. This program will work for you. I heard it so many times. Like I said, I can't even remember how many different interventions we tried. Not to mention how many, just thousands of dollars were spent trying different types of programs. And so I saw EduBlocks. I liked that they were specific to visual processing disorder, which is pretty rare in interventions. And so I had an interview with Susan, and again, she said, this program will work. And I said, I've heard that before. And she just was very confident that, no, this will work. We will get him to read. And I was kind of taken aback, like, how can she be so, sure that this program will work when we've failed so many different programs? But yeah, sure enough, she was very dedicated to her students and doing whatever we needed to make sure that Sorel was on track, that he was making gains, and that the program would work for him. So one of the big differences that I noticed with EduBlocks, from having done quite a bit of research on visual processing disorders and dyslexia, and then my son specifically, was their ability to integrate the working memory, the cognitive training and the reading all together. And that was pretty rare. I had not come across any program doing all of those things. When my son got screened for having a visual processing disorder, there's something called rapid autonomic naming. And Sorrel was in the 5th percentile. And basically, what that test is just a line of numbers where he has to simply read the numbers 1, 5, 7. And it was very hard for him because the way that his brain is working, he's not able to say what it is he's seeing. And with the program that EduBlocks is based on, it really helps to fill that gap along with working memory. And I remember early on, there was this worksheet that I had given Sorrel. It was literally like a circles with different animal faces, like cartoon animal faces. And all he had to do was just say giraffe, horse. And it was so hard for him. And he literally shut down the same way that he did when he would try to read letters on a page. And it was really profound of like, wow, it's just the symbol, and his ability to say what he's seeing. And in that regard, EduBlocks has really provided all aspects to help fill his deficit. I don't know what to call it, delay, to help him be able to recognize letters on the page and words on the page. My experience with EduBlocks has been really positive. The tutors have all been very engaging, really positive, easy to work with, very flexible to find times with our schedule, really engaging. Sorrel shows up. He's not fighting the process. He really wants to do well, and he's really given himself over to the tutor. And that is a big difference, in terms of how much effort it takes as a parent to get your kid to show up and actually do the work. The process, I'd say, in the beginning was really slow. It's not going to remediate reading in the course of one summer. And that's hard as a parent, especially when you've done so many different programs and you're just like, oh man, is this really working? Is it going to work? When are we going to see something? And I'd say with Sorrel, I can't remember exactly when we started to see something, but it was definitely not that first few months. There were changes, he'd start to read road signs and he'd say, oh, look, I read that. But it took a while for all the pieces to kind of fall into place, which is what they explain to you when you sort of meet with them. But at this point, Sorrel is now, I think, about 7 or 8 months in, and he's reading at a 4th grade level. We have a light at the end of the tunnel. There is like a way through, but also a way to the end, which was also very different with a lot of other programs where it was just kind of indefinitely, you will do this program. And we actually, Sorrel is able to read independently. He's able to work independently in class. He's not as needy from the teacher. And also, things like video games when he's on the computer by himself. That's the thing, is he might have accommodations at school, but in life, when you're at the grocery store or when you're, riding your bike with the road signs, you don't have those accommodations. And so his ability to pick up a book and read by himself or attempt to read instructions on a screen or a variety of things is just really coming along, and his confidence and his ability just to kind of work it out and not sound out every word or every sound. I mean, now he's just like flash reading when he sees a word. It's just he knows what the word is without having to decode everything. So yeah, there's been a lot of really positive changes. But I'd say the biggest thing is, he tutors 3 times a week and he shows up like 3 times a week, and he loves his tutor immensely, and he's committed and he's engaged and he's confident that this is helping and that it's going to take him where he wants to go. So we have had a number of positive impacts from doing the program on our family dynamics in general. It's not on me to figure out how to help him anymore. We have finally found something that's helping and that's working, and that has taken so much pressure off of me as a parent. And then also on my relationship with him, because when he gets on EduBlocks, I know they've got it. I know that what they're doing is working and I don't have to micromanage it. I'm seeing the results. We're able to check in regularly. So that is just a lot of stress and pressure off of me and then off of us together, because I don't need to kind of police him or, the work that we do outside of the program is very targeted, it's very specific, and it's pretty minimal. And that's also another thing that felt really off, is with all the other programs, there was so much stuff or so much time that we had to do together to sort of keep pace or to make progress. And it was pretty odd. I kept checking in, just saying, are you sure we don't have, we shouldn't be doing this, or should we be reading this much amount of time, or what should we be doing? And so it's been really nice just to take that off my plate. And now Sorel and I sit down and we read together, and we're starting to get to this. It's just really fluid and nice and pleasant. And it's not this kind of tantrum, put the timer on, white knuckle his way through it, grinding, constantly frustrated, and me frustrated and just trying to get through it. And then with my daughter, who's Sorel's twin, it's just a lot more time for the family because we don't have that just pressure, I'd say, around us or centering around us. The one thing that I'm really happy about EduBlocks is that it works. There's really nothing. It works, and that's phenomenal. EduBlocks is an evidence-based program based on a lot of scientific research on how to create those pathways in the brain for kids with dyslexia to be able to read, because they don't read in the traditional, the neural pathways for reading for somebody without dyslexia is different than that for which a kid with dyslexia has. And so EduBlocks really looks at that evidence and fills in those pathways with the exercises that they do and the format of the reading program itself. I would say don't wait. Start EduBlocks. It's a positive program. It does work. You will see results. So we've been talking about my son who has dyslexia, and he also has ADHD. And then his twin sister, she also has ADHD, but does not have dyslexia. And we've done the EduBlocks program for her as well for math, because we had a number of school changes and she had some gaps, and that it's an excellent program from all aspects from what I've seen. So if your kid is struggling, I would say try it, don't delay, and give it time to work. I wanted to do this testimonial because we have had such a struggle finding an intervention that works for Sorel. I've tried so many different programs with little to no gains. And I just wanted to appeal to the parents out there I was swayed by the testimonials, and I just wanted to add to that level of credibility of a parent who's tried the program. I had one of those kids who wasn't able to learn to read with the traditional approach. And I've been so thankful for what this program has given us in terms of allowing Sorel to be able to read independently, that I wanted to share that with other parents who might be looking at this program. The other thing that is amazing about EduBlocks is their ability to take their framework and adapt it to the individual learner. So the program itself and the tutor is working within a certain framework, but they're also working with the individual learner. So if there are certain things that need to be adapted for that child, so for example, my son has a visual processing disorder, like how can we utilize the structure of EduBlocks to fill that gap of what he's needing? And that has been just phenomenal. So it's not on autopilot, it's not a one size fits all. It's within this structure, we will do what we need to do to help your child wherever their gaps are. And that is also something I've not seen anywhere else.